Hi, welcome to LUSH, SOMArts Series Film Edition. Hello. All right, so my name is Tara Marsden, and I am the Development Initiatives Manager at SOMArts Cultural Center. And before we begin this evening, we want to recognize the land that SOMArts sits on as Yelamu, and that we are guests on occupied Ramaytush Ohlone territory. I myself am in Oakland right now. It's where I'm streaming, and so I'm on LUSH Ohlone territory. And in doing this acknowledgement, we acknowledge that the Ohlone people are the past, present, and future of this land. And we also recognize the ongoing violence of colonialism on Native communities. As Bay Area artists, advocates, and community members, those of us who are not Indigenous to this land have a responsibility to work in solidarity with Native peoples in tangible ways. One small way you can do this is by paying your Shumi land tax to Segorite Land Trust, a local organization of Lishan Ohlone people. And I'll be dropping that link in the chat, so keep an eye out for that. But moving on, folks who aren't familiar with SOMArts, just a quick background. We've been a cultural center in the Soma neighborhood of San Francisco for over 40 years. And we host gallery exhibitions, public art programs, events, residencies, and more. Or at least we do, you know, when it's not the middle of a pandemic, but we are doing a lot of those things virtually right now. And right now you can actually head over to somarts.org and check out our current virtual exhibition from our curatorial residency of our second curatorial residency of the year, Caravana, Mobilizing Central American Art from 1984 to present. And if you want to support our mission to keep our programming free and accessible, please consider making a one-time donation or even joining our Friends of SOMArts program to make your donation recurring. I'll also drop those links in the chat throughout the night. But moving on to the more exciting part, tonight we are so excited to be hosting the second of our three-part series, LUSH SOMArts Series, which explores the vital connection between art making and social justice. And I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight's conversation, who is very special to us because Devon is part of our team here at SOMArts. Devon Nandagiri is the current director of events at SOMArts, where he works with and mentors artists and event organizers. He's also the co-founder of the award-winning super fun dance party Hard French, which has brought legendary artists and DJs to San Francisco. And really exciting, he was just awarded the 2021 San Francisco Foundation / Nomadic Press Literary Award for his short story, Beauty School Revenge at Miss High Femme Frankie's, which I'm so excited, I would love to read. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to pass it on over to Devon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I'm really excited to be here. The staff at SOMArts has been so incredible, and this is literally a dream to be able to talk with three of my favorite people about film and queer futures, and we will see where this conversation takes us. So I'd like to bring on one of my favorite people in the world, Heather Maria Atch. And yeah, so I guess what I want to say about Heather is that she and I met in New York City. We actually weren't even friends yet. And I was doing a party where we had edible decorations. It was called Buffet. And I somehow got connected with her and her best friend, Sequinette, decided to do a performance piece where they were the girls with the most cake. And they went around dressed as Courtney Love, basically singing happy birthday to people around the party. And in addition to being an amazing performance artist, she is a filmmaker, activist. She does FemmePower productions. I'll kind of hand it over to you, Heather, to talk about FemmePower productions and also, contextualize what we're about to see, the clip that we're about to watch.
Great, thanks so much, Devon. I'm so excited to be here. It's such an all-star lineup, and I can't wait to see everyone else's work. So the first thing that you're gonna see is a clip from Flourish. It's a short film that I made through my company, FemmePower Productions. FemmePower Productions was started, I guess, maybe 5 years ago now. So I went from making all kinds of like weirdo, queerdo performance art and doing a DIY tour with a group I had called Heels on Wheels, which is an all queer feminine spectrum performance group. And then I started making films. And so this is the second film in an anthology series. The first film is called Flush, and it's about a group of queer hustlers and a group domination session that goes awry. I'm going to let this film speak for itself, but I felt like there was a lack of intersectional queer radical representation on screen. And there's some amazing work out there, and I wanted to contribute to that as well. So my main goals are having that representation both on screen and behind the scenes, and having a super fabulous fun time while we are making our work as well. And the work that I'm trying to do is I'm really trying to move away from LGBT coming out stories, which those are great. We can have all of those that everybody wants, and really moving away from trauma narratives. That's not something that I'm interested in working with. I'm not saying that my work is not founded in conflict, drama, or vulnerability. Those are absolutely core to what I'm doing, but I believe that telling stories about queer joy and resistance, resilience is an act of resistance. So that's what I'm about. And so my characters don't die, we don't lose, we survive and thrive, all while looking fabulous. So check out Flourish, and I would love to know what everybody thinks.
Have you seen me in the magazine?
Have you seen me? Have you seen me?
Magazine?
Have you seen me in the magazine?
Huh?
Have you seen me?
In the magazine?
Huh? Have you seen me in the magazine?
Huh?
Have you seen me?
In the magazine?
Huh? Have you seen me in the magazine? Beep beep, my Jeep clean, the ring stink. Bling bling, my ring finger ching ching. Ice cold, the links clink, my chain blinks. Drip drop, diamonds, cartel wing sing. Tick tock, this rich watch is so hot. Black ice, I'm so nice, I'm fish posh. Black top, but still rock the torso. Still boot, my brown top, my big black. I'm a music.
Hey, darling. What are you doing here? I came to see you perform. It's like church, baby girl. We're not supposed to smoke in here.
Decide what number you're gonna do?
I was gonna do a medley, but you usually do my text,
You got a
so...
lighter?
No. You can't be here.
Come on.
We're not supposed to be sharing space right now. You agreed.
That's not what I said. I said... That's not what I meant.
No, you are not gonna keep twisting things
I
around.
said like a...
Are you drunk?
Well, no, I'm hydrating. You told me you want me to drink more water.
I am calling your sponsor.
I think you are overreacting.
No, I am not.
Oh my God.
Damn it, nobody wants to answer their phone anymore. Damn it, Bo. What am I supposed to do? I am performing tonight. You know I can't have shenanigans like this when I have to perform. And this is the first...
Hey. I just came to grab this. Is everything okay?
Yes. Bo was just dropping off a prop for me, and he was just leaving.
I'm just leaving.
Could you give me my special, honey?
Of course, only top shelf for mixed crystal visions. And I'm right outside if you need anything.
Thanks, Owen.
Both of you.
This is embarrassing.
No.
I can't take it. I can't.
Why are you
I
trying
have
to
to get ready.
Why you always make me out to be bad when all I want to do is be good to you?
Baby, you cannot be good to me or anyone until you learn to be good to yourself.
I'm sorry. I'll get you ready. You're gonna kill it, baby.
Let me know if I need to get a car for you.
Probably walking through broken glass under the underpass. While I think of all last year and wonder if it was meant for us. If I testify, maybe most.
Where the F are my black fishnets? Babe, are you wearing them?
Nope. My black fishnets have a hole on the left side, and yours have a rip in the crotch. You know what I heard? B's in town. And they're gonna be at the party.
Tonight? Babe.
Oh, I didn't know you were gonna react like that.
What do you mean? We've been talking about this for months. V is so hot. Okay, and look, don't you feel like this is exactly what we've been talking about when we talk about non-monogamy, like how love isn't this fixed, quantifiable, finite amount that's like trapped between two people, because love is this galaxy and we're like these orbiting planets and meteors like colliding and like sexing and breaking apart and like combusting and like a black hole and like love.
Just because we're open, that doesn't mean we have to hook up with every queer that comes through town. You don't even know if they're gonna be into it.
Oh, they will be into it.
That is problematic. B has autonomy.
Okay, right, I'm checking myself. I'm just saying that based on the last time when we were in the back of that truck.
I don't even know if I wanna go out tonight.
Babe, you just painted your nails.
Laser, you know I'm working on FOMO. The world is a mess. It's a freaking apocalypse and we're gonna go dancing? It's disgusting.
Okay, yes, the world is a mess, and because it is the apocalypse, we are going to go dancing, and we are going to have queer, kinky sex, and we are going to love each other because this is our legacy. And tomorrow, if everyone consents, you'll wake up tangled with the hottest babe from the West Coast and a stack of gluten-free blueberry pancakes.
And fresh squeezed orange juice.
And fresh squeezed OJ. For my most darling dear.
Got your tick-tock tick, I got your ass on the clock. Besides from being cocky, I'm the realest on the block. Tick-tock tick, you see me coming for your spot. My bars are straight golden, plus I don't do ass shots, bitch.
The God is here, the God is here, the God is here, and she dripping all this gold. Hey, the God is here, the God is here, the God is here, and she dripping all this gold. Hey.
Drink. I sip till I feel pink. I got my fur jackets, them fur clacks. Don't touch them, it looks like mink. I keep the rose gold with my gold, so I keep giving over to the bank. I'm lubed up from head to toe. I can really get over what you think.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that amazing clip. I can't wait for you all to see the whole film because it is incredible. And now we have one of my favorite people, Leo Herrera, with us. He's an activist, filmmaker, The Fathers Project, iftheylive.org. You have to check out this movie. You can actually watch, like, is it the 45 minutes? Is that the whole movie or are you still working on it?
That's the whole movie for now.
Yeah, you can watch it, the whole movie right now. And in addition to being a filmmaker, he creates these awesome memes just kind of discussing what's going on in culture right now. And you can read those at Herrera Images on Instagram. What do you want to tell us about If They Lived and Fathers Project? And it's such a deep like piece of work. So
So the Fathers Project is a multimedia project that imagines the world if the AIDS pandemic never existed and a generation lived to change the world. And one of the pieces of it is a film, and we're going to see the first part of it. It was released in chapters over the last couple of years, and there is a 45-minute cut of it. This is the first part. There's 5 parts to chapter 1. and I'm currently doing pre-production for chapter 2 because now we're in a second pandemic and a lot of the lessons of the first one are pretty relevant now. There is actually a scene in Fathers that has a nightclub called the Quarantine, where you can have poppers that cure you from STDs and viral diseases and stuff like that. So a lot of these things ended up being pretty prescient.
I want to go
What you're about to see is the first chapter of it. It's the introduction to it. And it is a faux documentary. So it's sort of set in the style of like sort of like a Ken Burns documentary or Spinal Tap or something like that. All of the scenes in the movie are filmed at real life events. A lot of them that took place in San Francisco, like Folsom, and even Hard French does an appearance in there. And yeah, so you're about to see the first part of the 45-minute cut that you can see at iftheylive.org. But here's the first 7 minutes of the film.
Thank you.
When AIDS started to happen, at around the 7th or 8th person I knew who died of it, I found that I was not able to remember everybody. I have a list, and not counting people whom I only knew professionally, but only people whom I knew personally or socially, as in we'd been at the same party, or guests somewhere, or bought each other a drink someplace. The list has 200 names on it.
You hear about it's not what it used to be from the older generation a lot. It ain't what it used to be. Well, it's not. It never was. It always changes, right? But I was in the art community and I saw so much constant loss of a lot of people who put a color, a hue on gatherings. It was like these artists coming together, and I started seeing that drop out, and I saw the nature of everything changing so fast.
If AIDS never happened, I think that we'd be so much further along. The arts and homelessness, all that would be different. We'd be families. There'd be families. We'd already just be doing what we were doing anyway, taking care of each other.
It definitely would have been different. Equal rights as we understand it, to live safe lives, to be represented, not be discriminated against, would have probably happened sooner.
If AIDS never happened, I would be celebrating my 36th anniversary with Richard. We were intended for each other.
All that talent, all the people who died, they would be here contributing to everything. Maybe this delay through AIDS, maybe the point of it was to really show our strength.
Tonight, a special report on the American queer colonies. Their influence on the United States is undeniable. Their political power, unprecedented. As their population and territories continue to grow, they are being scrutinized like never before. On this series, we will explore the history, present and the future of what has been called the secret country. The 1980s were a golden era for the gay population. It was a decade defined by a dominance of the arts, victories in politics and groundbreaking developments in healthcare. Among the many achievements was the founding of Stonewall Nation, a collection of queer communes. The nation was governed by a group of activists from the earlier gay liberation era.
It's a sort of interesting time in history. We never thought that when gay people came out of the closet that our problems were going to be solved. Our problems were just beginning because our very visibility is what freaks them out the most.
With the help of volunteers, donors, and a savvy political machine, Stonewall Nation expanded across the United States. The nation not only attracted young people and artists, but seniors and professionals in all fields. This diversity helped expand the small communes into the sprawling territories we now refer to as the queer colonies. The colonies are self-sufficient. A generation of seasoned activists have enacted progressive policies and social programs that have become the gold standard. Suicide, addiction, homelessness and even venereal disease rates are the lowest in the country. Despite their differences, the colonies are closely connected by a common language and culture. Now, after electing countless progressive politicians across the country, the colonies face their biggest challenge yet: the nomination of Colony Ambassador Vito Russo to be the first openly gay president of the United States. As the election of 2020 looms, the world is watching, in astonishment that 10% of the population could have so much influence over the most powerful country in the world. Perhaps the golden era has barely begun. Coming up, we will explore the politics, nightlife and sexuality of the American queer colonies, as well as the consequences of these freedoms and their effect on the rest of the world.
Welcome back. That was incredible. I was just saying how I had to watch that movie so many times to desensitize myself because I didn't want to cry while I was introducing it or after I watched it. Definitely check it out on iftheylive.org. But right now we have with us Brontez Purnell, writer, musician, dancer, filmmaker, performance artist. He is gracing us directly from, he just got here from SF MoMA, where the Younger Lovers just played at the SF MoMA Art Bash. Welcome, Ronnie.
Hi.
I don't even know. There's so much to introduce you for, but I think I just have to plug this really quick. Your amazing book that just came out. I'm so proud of you. Tell us what you want us to know about this 5-minute film clip that we're about to watch.
Okay, so I've been doing this episodic film series called 100 Boyfriends Mixtape since about 2013. And this is the third installment It's called 100 Boyfriends Mixtape, Fuckboy Anthem / How I Spent My Summer Vacation. And it is a depersonalized video zine.
Excellent. Well, let's watch it.
Hey Brontez, I own you. I own your emotions. I can make you love, and I can make you hate. Fear me, love me, do as I say, and I will be your slave.
Je te possède. Je possède tes émotions. Je peux te faire
Tu es à moi.
aimer.
Tes émotions sont à moi.
Je peux te faire haïr.
Je peux te faire aimer.
Crains-moi.
Je peux te faire haïr.
Aime-moi.
Crains-moi.
Fais ce que je dis.
Aime-moi.
Je serai ton esclave.
Fais comme je te le dis.
Brontez.
Je serai ton esclave.
Brontez, Brontez. Ich besitze dich. Mir gehören deine Emotionen. Ich kann dich dazu bringen zu lieben.
Brontez.
Und ich kann dich dazu
Hazme
bringen
tuyo,
zu hassen.
cabrón. Hazme tu esclavo, güey. Yo sé que te hago sentir odio, pero hazme tuyo, puto. Haz lo que te digo, por favor, Brontez. Pinche Brontez. Brontez. Hazme tuyo, cabrón. Hazme tu esclavo, güey. Yo sé que te hago sentir odio, pero hazme tuyo. Haz lo que te digo, por favor, Brontez.
I can make you love, and I can make you hate. Fear me, love me, do as I say, and I will be.
I don't have 20/20 vision and my eyes have deceived me many times. Catching hella fine lines, full of aroma, I wanna see them. Top earthquakes, icebergs hidden around me. Black clear, I just don't speak. Oh, hands for love, he's my brother. And storm clouds gather around my window. Oh, it's fine, oh, it's fine, oh, it's fine. I know it'll be alright. It's alright, it's alright. It'll have to be some. I don't have 20/20 vision now. My eyes have deceived me many times. Catching hella fine lines, full of aroma, I wanna see them. Top earthquakes, icebergs hidden around me. Black clear, I just don't speak. Oh, hands for love, he's my brother. And storm clouds gather around my window, but I refuse to hear much of any evil. Leave me out of this, leave me out of it. Please leave me, please leave me out of it. Leave me out of it. Brother, leave me, brother, leave me out of this. I don't have 20/20 vision now. My eyes have deceived me many times. Catching hella fine lines, full of aroma, I wanna see them. Top earthquakes, icebergs hidden around me. Black times when I just don't speak. Oh, hands for love, he's my brother. And storm clouds gather on my window, but I refuse to hear much of any evil. Leave me out of this, leave me out of it. Brother, leave me, brother, leave me out of this. Brother, leave me, brother, leave me, brother, leave me out of this. Brother, leave me, brother, leave me, brother, leave me out of this.
Welcome back. That was so cool.
Wait, hold up, wait a minute. Heather, actually, thank you for saying that because this boy cussed me out last night. So hearing that really helped. That's why I got a little choked up. Like,
Well, Heather just asked Brontez why he was such a dreamboat. And
Brontez is such
and
a
that-
dreamboat.
He's
How
always been a
sweet was
dreamboat.
that? I love it.
Suddenly, Brontez had no words for like
Always.
5 seconds. Bronny, turn your mic
I'm
on.
glad this is documented.
I can't literally blush, so I have to like show it in my emotions. Like,
all right, you guys, I am so excited to like get into this. And my first question is about queer roots, because I have really specific film inspirations. I remember watching Gregor Rocky's Nowhere, and it was like it changed my life. I watched My Own Private Idaho, and I was like, I am gay. I watched Sarah Gilbert and Drew Barrymore make out in Poison Ivy, and I was like, am I a lesbian? I was like, what is going on? And Bound, I don't know. Those are like my queer roots. So I just want to know, you know, what are your queer roots? Like, what inspired you to get into filmmaking? I don't know, Heather, do you want to start?
This is such a hard question for me because I feel like I don't have I don't have an immediate, I have like my nerdy like film, like, well, you know, Born in Flames is a very important film to me, but when you were talking just now, all I could think was Steel Magnolias. So, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
Dolly
so
Parton.
gay.
It's so gay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Dolly, it's Olympia Dukakis, it's Sally Field. So I think as a young person, I watched a lot of films that were all women. So I was like obsessed with Steel Magnolias. I was obsessed with, or I guess it's not all women, but like Waiting to Exhale, or like, you know, anything that had like a bunch of strong women in it, or like, you know, focus on women's narratives. And yeah, and then I'm like, okay, so sure, Born in Flames, and, you know, whatever. I come from like punk rock and DIY. So like, you know, I remember seeing Suburbia for the first time and being like, but then I also love Wong Kar-wai and, you know, Happy Together and things like that. So I guess it's sort of, there's a range there.
Yeah, Leo?
Yeah, I feel sort of the same way. And also, like, let's not forget that through the 90s, like, a lot of gay films sucked so bad. So for me, it was more like, right? We didn't have a lot of really nice things in the 90s. But I loved, you know, Almodovar, like these sort of the obvious ones, but also like even just the subtext in shows was important to me. Like if you got to see characters come out on TV, and like, I was Mexican and I was in a Spanish only household for a long time. So like telenovelas were a really big part of what I do. And then you get to the later part of the decade, and things like Hedwig was a really big influence, and those kinds of artists that were sort of coming out of it. But for the most part, I think the format that I love the most, and why Fathers is a fake documentary, is because we made really good documentaries. Narrative wise, we still have a lot to learn, but we had a lot of really great documentaries that I really gravitated toward.
Yeah, I mean, everything that my mom knows about queerness came from watching Cristina.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, Univision was like on 24 hours.
Same.
At my house. Bronny, what about you?
okay, it's Flashdance. It's Alex from Flashdance, fucking period. When I was 5 years old, I would sit my dad in the living room and I would act out scenes from Flashdance. He asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was 5 or 6, and I said a stripper. Because they used to play like every other Saturday on Channel 54 growing up. And I actually went back and watched it like probably like sometime during quarantine. And she was closer to a performance artist than an actual stripper, because it's like she never really took off her clothes, and then there's like the strobe light and her face is painted white, and there's a checkered room that she painted, and she's like, and I'm like, this is supposed to be sexy, like, which is what I say about my career all the time. And then what else? Like she was a dancer that lived in a warehouse, and then one day I was like in my 20s, and I'm like, I'm a dancer that lives in a warehouse. So it was all Flashdance.
You made it. No, I totally feel that. And yeah, so my next question is, I think that right now we're like in a really specific moment around how to make art, how to make films, and how to make them accessible to as many people as possible, right? Because I mean, in the end, that's why a lot of these queer roots that we're talking about, like, are kind of mainstream movies that we somehow, got those signals around their queerness and were able to validate ourselves with. But I want to know, what are some of the challenges you faced as marginalized queer artists making films right now, and specifically, I don't know, if the pandemic kind of has played into any of the challenges of getting your movies out, or how can we watch your movies right now in a pandemic? We can't go to film screenings, you know what I mean? So can you talk about some of those challenges?
I mean, there's so many moving pieces if you want to make queer art that don't move very much. No one's banging on a Mexican immigrant's door to make a fake documentary with a fisting scene in the middle of it. And social media is not ready to take that on. And, I think everybody on this panel probably has been through that. And I think the biggest challenge is getting out of your head about it and thinking that you have to go through these specific Hollywood, pipelines that are not built for people like us and that have never been built for people like us. And the things that we admire the most historically, like, John Waters off the top of my head, like that, those weren't made in a regular pipeline. So I think the challenge is they're timeless, but if you want to make it, you're gonna get it done.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Bronnie, I want to know what challenges you've had, because your films are kind of doing like a different circuit than some of these other films, right?
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I always think like the only people that really care about queer art is queer people. And so most of like my movies and stuff, mostly I'll have my friends like email me and I'll send them the link. Like that's usually how I show them. And then sometimes, yeah, but sometimes a random gallery will be like, "Can we show this?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, like of course." But yeah, the last thing I did that was the Ed Mock documentary that I did, and I was just trying to get it archived some places, so it was cool. So I asked if people in any performance program wanted this like documentary, and I actually got it shown a lot more in a lot of places once it became up for grabs. So that was a nice strategy. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've always made stuff and feel like I'll spend a lifetime filing where it all fits in. So
I mean, I think this question is very interesting, right? How do we share the films with our audiences, right? And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, how, okay, so if it's not a pandemic, then you can have your like cute queer art event where your friends are there and everybody parties. Or then there's like major streaming platforms like Amazon and Netflix and all of those people, right? And what I've been thinking about, it's so interesting, like when I think about music or I think about poetry or I think about other forms of subcultural art, I feel like it's very much understood that you go to an underground event and experience it. But so many queer people and queer radicals I know, like the main platforms they still engage in are Amazon, Netflix, whatever is easy to click on. And so I'm always curious about what are the other platforms that exist or we can create or have access to so that we can do things other than send the link to our friends. So, again, before I was making films, I was doing, just like queerdo performance art. And once I started making films and I started going to festivals, I'm like, wow, there's all this amazing work out there. So when quarantine first started, I updated my website and I started something called FemmePower TV, because I was like, people are quarantined. We need access to queer content. And so I only ended up doing one program, but, I curated a lineup of short films and, docs and episodic and whatnot. So that's on femmepowerproductions.com, and you go to FemmePower TV. And, ideally I would have done it monthly or ongoing, but it's a lot of work. So, but I'm curious, if there are platforms that people like that show more indie and underground work, and how we can sort of, as a bunch of different communities, practice engaging in those places as opposed to just going to the big major ones. So it's interesting. I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I made a film in college and I wanted the world to see it. when I was in college. Now I don't want anyone to see it. But at the time, I screened it at Slam Dance, and it opened up, like getting into Slam Dance opened up opportunities to screen it all around the world that I wouldn't have had if I just didn't have that one moment, you know? And that was really incredible for me. But I want everyone to see your movies, you know, all three of you. I want everyone in the world to have access to these films, and I don't have the answer on how to do that, but FemmePower Productions is definitely one way that we can do that. And I saw movies on FemmePower Productions I've been waiting to see for so long, like Dorian Wood's like movie. Like I would never have been able to see their film if it wasn't, you know, for having it being screened on your website. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, you know, since we're in here, one of the things that's happened during pandemic, right, is that, you know, festivals are going online, and traditionally, you know, festivals are not, you know, they're just not accessible. They're not. So first of all, to even get programmed in a festival that's not queer specific is difficult. And then for even, you know, these bigger gay festivals, you know, people I know anyway, just aren't necessarily going to those unless they're already making films. So I do think that having them online was a way that more people could have access to them, and the tickets were a little bit more affordable. And so, you know, I mean, I have this conversation with people, right? When I'm talking to people who work at festivals or programmers, you know, it's like, how can you actually be accessible to the communities that, you know, you're trying to reach out to, or, you know, that need to be represented. And I mean, and that's part of it too, right? If there's a lack of representation, even within like these bigger like LGBTQ festivals, then, you know, why would people even go? So,
yeah,
I mean, it's all the same fucking day, right? It's like, it's all the same game. It's all of these same like, you know, intersectional oppressions that are like playing out over and over and over again. But I do think there's awesome things like OTV comes out of Chicago that has a bunch of independent work that is very intersectional, and I'm a huge fan of them. And I hope that there can be more platforms like that, but creating a platform still requires resources, you know? So yeah, I'm just curious how we can work more towards that.
Yeah, and that's a great question for SOMArts to ask ourselves too, because we have a platform, and how can we help support queer filmmakers too? Which kind of leads me to my next question, which is, and I don't know if you guys are feeling this, but I am so overwhelmed right now with creativity. And I just spent the past year, you know, doing nothing, basically. I mean, you know, I've done a lot, but like, you know, sitting in my house, contemplating, thinking about everything. And I have this theory that we're on the cusp of a queer renaissance. And, you know, once it's already started, I feel like, you know, just this panel discussion, the whole LUSH series that SOMArts is doing is part of this new arts renaissance. And it's really just beginning, I think. I mean, we'll see what happens, but what are your thoughts on how the pandemic is changing the ways in which we view and create queer art right now? I mean, I know it's a really heavy question, but, you know, for me right now, I'm just like, can everyone just start making art immediately and bring us back to like Almodovar, like, you know, when the, you know, dictatorship fell in Spain, and, you know, that whole movement happened, and all of this beautiful art was coming out of it. Like, that's where I feel like we're kind of at right now.
I think eras are defined way later, so we'll know when that's going to happen. But also, I think the biggest thing that happened in the pandemic is that people realized how important art is, and how crucial it is for our survival, and how when everything else was closed up, all people had was art to take in. And I think that importance, I think people understanding how relevant it is and how crucial it is to their mental health is a huge building block. And I think that's going to be really beneficial for artists moving forward.
And Brontez, you made your film during the pandemic, right?
Yes, I did.
So tell us about that.
I had always wanted to make there's like 100 Boyfriends mixtape has so many iterations, but this like kind of like the first one I made with Naked Sword, and they were very like, you have to have more of a narrative or something like that. And then the second one was for like this Whitney thing, and it was like all narrative. But I'd always wanted to make something kind of fucked up and a bit more glitchy and like a bit more just kind of like all over the place. And so I was like, oh, I'll just do it with my phone over the course of months. And so I did. As far as like pandemic stuff, this is just me, but I would love another year inside. I don't really miss these hoes yet. I'm sorry, like when I think about the past couple of years and like with Trump and stuff, like I feel like everyone's just been so nasty, like even members of my own community just so nasty to one another. And I really think it was like God being like, okay, y'all bitches gonna take a time out. Like just go sit in your room by yourself and like reconstitute, think it out. I'm all for it. That said, it's been great for doing readings because I used to go on book tour and you go to like Providence and there's like 10 people there and you can drove all the way to Providence. But like you give a reading like now and it's like you'll be sitting in your room and it's like people from Paris, some London folks, there'll be like 200 people there. And then you can just go back to bed. So I'm not gonna pretend that I'm not gonna miss that shit.
Yeah, I definitely think the pandemic opened up a situation where we can now connect globally, which is amazing. You know, like I don't know who's in this room right now, like watching this, but if you were living in Berlin, you have access to this. When if we were to do this in person, we wouldn't be able to have Heather unless we flew her out to San Francisco. You know, it's awesome. But the year that we had off, I didn't know that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, so I didn't use it. I didn't use it as well as I could have. So I would like another year where I know what's going to happen at the end of the year, right? But Heather, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I just have to be that person, Devon, that's like, I just want you to not, and anyone else who's feeling that way, to not judge themselves for what they did or didn't do in quarantine. And of course, it's very hard to apply that to myself. It's easy for me to say to other people, but, this is a completely, this is an unprecedented scenario, although it's interesting to think of it in that way after watching Leo's work, but, which I love so much. And so one, right, like we got to be kind to ourselves and to each other. Yeah. And then that said, I don't know if I have a positive response to this question. I feel a little bit like, definitely in terms of filmmaking, it's been for what I've been doing, it's very difficult, right? So, I've sort of moved from doing performance art to doing work that is intentionally very narrative and intentionally working towards episodic. So, the next thing on my agenda is to create a series and a queer series. And my work is ensemble based, and that is what it has to be. So it's very important to my work that there's 5 central characters, because there has to be someone who is fat and gorgeous. There has to be someone who is non-binary. There has to be someone who's trans. There has to be multiple, right? There has to be like multiple intersections of like race and ethnicity and ability and all of those things. So I can't, it's hard for me to do what I'm trying to do with just like a scene with just like 1 or 2 people. So, that's fine. I can do something else. I have other things in store, but yeah, I'm working with a cast and crew that, on both of my films, the last one, it was like, around 30 people, which, in like the film world, that's super tiny, but for me, that's huge. So, and it's difficult to gather that many people right now. So I'm trying to reassess. What I do love is really seeing what people have been doing in terms of live performance. Like even when things first started going down, I was definitely here for like, the stud on Twitch and all the like drag and performance art, and seeing the ways that people were utilizing, their spaces and outside and their garages and their homes in real time, as well as like all the amazing like tech and, video art that was coming out of it. So, I feel like hella respect for like all the like drag artists and performance artists and live performers who have been making this work. And, my heart just goes out to all of you.
We can all say positively that drag artists are now the new filmmakers of our community, because I never knew there was they had so many skills like hidden, how many talents they had hidden behind those wigs, right? And that kind of brings me to my next question, which is all of you are actually not just filmmakers. I mean, you're all interdisciplinary artists and activists in your own way. And I want to know how, you know, the other art forms that you work on, how that plays into the stories that you want to tell through filmmaking. You know, especially, you know, like Leo, you are like these memes that you're creating and the statements that you're making, you're also putting that through moving images. And I just want to know what that relationship is for all of you.
I mean, it's hard to figure out where those synapses start to join, I think. And I mean, I've always been sort of multimedia because also necessity is the form of, I mean, it's a necessity, right? So like I couldn't make any movies or shoot anything the last year. So I decided to start writing some of the themes that were born from fathers and some of the lessons of what it was like to study another pandemic for 10 years. And all of a sudden we're in one. So it made sense for me to start sort of jotting those things down and then, you know, creating a different format out of it. So I think it's hard to figure out where that inspiration comes from or where that, I mean, it's you're a vessel of the divine, like it comes out of something else. So I wish that I knew how that happened, but also just the sheer necessity. I think a lot of artists, you know, we have to work with what we have and we have to, you know, do stop motion or drag or certain things like that. So if you have this sort of like thing that you want to say and this creative force within you, it's going to figure out a way to get out. But I think the most important thing is self-care is what I've learned now that I'm pushing 40, which is creating a space for yourself and creating a mental space for yourself and a healthy enough body so that when that time comes when you need to be inspired, you're not totally hungover or you're not feeling disgusting because you ate really bad. Like those things, they seem silly. And if you had told my 23-year-old self that was going to be a lesson to learn, I wouldn't have believed it. But now that the pandemic made us so aware of our bodies, made us so aware of our personal space, that realizing that I needed to really take care of that, all of a sudden that creative force found its way out somehow in a way that made sense for me. And I think a lot of us have to learn that.
I'm feeling that. I'm creating like whole sets for a marionette Bart doll because that's all I have access to right now to like do, you know, for my creativity. So Heather, what are your thoughts on, you know, going from all the different things that you do in your life as an artist?
It's interesting. What I started thinking about when you asked that question is my experience as an actor and performer and how that affects my work as a director and how I have so much care for actors and having been someone that felt like, you know, even with all the privileges that I have, that there just weren't roles for me, that there weren't roles that were interesting, that there weren't roles that reflected who I am or the people that I love. And so when I write, I'm really thinking about the actors and performers that I know in my different communities. And I want so badly to create a really awesome role for them, like something that they can be excited about that actually represents their gender or sexuality or their identities and who they are. And so I think that plays out in terms of my writing. And then, you know, again, with directing, just having a lot of care and even, again, you know, what I'm doing is so like teeny tiny micro budget, but I always make sure that everybody gets paid for what I'm doing, even if it's a token amount, a stipend, because I've been an actor in so many projects for free. And some things I'm absolutely like happy to donate my time to, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, there's some institution that's doing a thing and they're like, oh, can you come do this thing for free? And you're like, okay, I'll do it because of X, Y, and Z. And you're just like, will I ever get paid to do anything? And so it was really important to me for my first film that the actors got paid. And then once you pay one person, you got to pay everybody. And so, you know, that budget jumped real quick, but I was like, I refuse to make something where actors do not get at least a stipend because, you know, we really deserve that. So I really,
that's a great point. Like you have multiple perspectives on being in front of the camera and behind the camera. And Bronny, I mean, this question for you right now, like you're just like, you're doing so much. I can't even keep up with all the different art forms that you're doing right now. Yeah, what are your thoughts on being an interdisciplinary artist?
I think that it's a term that's given like a really gilded sounding name, but in honesty, it's just because motherfuckers is broke. Like, we live in a gig economy. Like, seriously, like, I would love to be Danielle Steele and just sit in a room with a ball gown and just type romance novels all motherfucking day the next 50 years. But no one's gonna pay me for that. And also, like, you don't always have a team behind you. If someone says, yo, I need a photograph, I need this, I need you to do a cooking show and a jock strap for these $500. It's like, yo, who can do that? I got you. Like, you know, it's kind of it's very promiscuous, right? And it's very like because art has been, as some might argue, so overly democratized. You basically have to be able to like wear 5 hats just to float like your own thing. I love that people introduced me as multidisciplinary, and it sounds like Renaissance man, when in actuality too, it also should read as desperate.
A whore.
No, I totally feel that. I'm like, yeah, we gotta. It's, and I don't know. I don't know if it's specific to. I feel like in the Bay, I'm like, there's a Bay Area hustle where you're just like, you know, you work a nonprofit job. I'm like working a nonprofit job. I'm doing a party. I'm doing this, and it's also because we love doing. You know, we love this, and we love all of our communities that are supporting us and doing this. But also going back to something, Heather, that you said that was actually, it's a really important thing to me, is creating stories where we're not being gay bashed, you know, where like a gay person is not being killed. And I think that those stories, like, you know, like the whole like the Brandon Tina movie was like such a big deal at the time. And I was like, it is very important to tell that story. But, you know, as a young person watching that, I'm like, is that what I'm, you know, is that my destiny, you know? And so I guess my next question is, how do we as queer artists take up space and show images of queer love? You know, like how do we kind of turn that narrative that we kind of grew up with and acknowledge that we need to show the reality of what's happening, but also just be like, there is so much joy in queerness too.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because I had just said the thing about not being interested in trauma narratives. And then I watched Leo's work and I felt like, oh man, I really need to I need to update what I said because I love that piece so much. I can't wait to watch the whole thing. And the part that is acknowledging the trauma is so important. So what I mean by trauma narratives is exactly what you're talking about, Devon, you know, like the, you know, those narratives of like, you know, like the Brandon Tina story and things like that, whereas we only had access to those. And I know that, so again, right, I mean, one of the things that I was excited about in terms of this panel, I love the premise of this panel, right? This idea of abundance and like moving away from a dystopian narrative, because let's be real, I mean, you know, dystopian narratives are all around us. Toxicity is all around us, right? It's, you know, different for each person. And, but I know that when I think about making my work, what my friends say to me consistently, when I ask them, I'm like, well, what do you want to watch, right? My queer friends, it's, you know, something fun where we don't die. Like actually as simple as that, you know? And that's the thing, right? Like there is so much joy. I mean, we, you know, like most of us on this panel, like have partied together and it is the most amazing thing to, you know, roll out to the fucking spot and see the drag show and the sequins and the glitter and all of these things. We have so much joy. We have so much resilience. And I want to see that. And I think that, I mean, again, I'm just going to drag institutions, right? It's like, I think sometimes in order to get funding, in order to get a green light, in order to be able to move forward, right? The people who have power to greenlight those projects, are not people from our communities. And so the only narrative that they understand is that trauma narrative and then it was like, okay, now we're lucky we get to have a coming out story. Okay, well, they can handle that. And I'm not interested in that. You know, I think we deserve to have multifaceted stories, to have multiple narratives going on. And that's, you know, again, I'm interested in joy and even comedy. I mean, I never thought I'd end up there, but, you know, I think humor is such a tool for survival and for healing. Yes, Brontez. And like, you know, that's what we need to see. And that's what so many people want to see. I mean, we can see tragedy and horror any second of our fucking lives. So, you know, how can we bring the joy without losing the realities of the world that we're living in?
Yeah, and Leo, I think that you do that so well. I mean, you basically created a future that is full of joy while acknowledging the trauma, and you're able to hold all of these pieces together. And, you know, can you talk a little more about how?
I mean, that was the first, I had a set of guidelines for creating Fathers, and one of them was to create the most utopian vision that I possibly could, to just go as far as possible, because we don't ever get to see that. And even within the documentary, I interview this man who was the oldest member of this gay Mardi Gras crew. And he's laughing because he says, and it's in the film when he says, I saw a documentary about AIDS once in San Francisco. And he's like, and it's so grim. And it made me think, did y'all laugh ever? And that's the thing that we internalize. And a lot of it is the institution's fault, but it's also, I mean, we've had this discussion since Vito Russo created the celluloid closet, where he traces the fact that the images that we see of ourselves, it's just such a bad feedback loop. The institutions say, oh, trauma, slave movies, immigration, crossing the border stuff. And then we take that in and then we internalize that. And then we create stories based on like the coming out narrative and the AIDS narrative and the meth narrative, and then a story about where somebody dies. And so part of it for Fathers for me was to give myself permission to just go as far into a utopian vision as possible, which got harder as the Trump administration did its bullshit and as it got scarier to be an immigrant in this country. But that was part of the challenge. And I think I realized for the first time on a very visceral level that it's hard to tell fun stories because you have to process all of this trauma yourself first. And that takes up so much energy and time and money. And if you have an institution behind you, it's not gonna encourage that. So part of what made Fathers possible was that it was filmed in real moments of utopia and that it was funded by the community completely. So I never had to answer to anybody at all. All I just had to answer was invites to go to certain things. So when somebody in New York was like, do you want to film this 15-man fisting scene in a party that's never had a camera before? Then you say yes, because you don't have to call, you know, an executive somewhere. Granted, I never made any money and I still have trouble showing the film. But when people view it, you know, they understand that there is a different possibility for that we can tell stories about AIDS where not everybody dies, like that you're flipping these tropes on their head. And it takes a lot of work, but that's why you signed up to be an artist. It's not because it's easy.
Ronnie, do you have anything to add to that?
What was the question again?
How do we so your film specifically, we didn't get to watch the first part of it because it was too explicit for Twitch's guidelines. But there's moments in it where, you know, you're addressing things that are not so fun in our community, like the fact that we had to live with Trump for the past 4 years in office. And what we did see though was the ending, which ends on such a beautiful, joyful note, you know. How do we, I don't know, the question is, how do we kind of put out images of queer love?
I don't know. I don't think I'm good at that at all. Like, I don't know. I mostly just paint the pictures that swirl around me. Sometimes they're beautiful and like totally utopic. Sometimes it's like some real grim shit that you're not getting past. I think these things all exist at once, you know. We kind of hold these things. I just think in terms of like consciousness and thought and record or whatever, like voices all kind of going at once anyway. And I also think just like when you look at streaming platforms and all this stuff, and like how in the course of 6 months there'll be 192 shows premiering, I think like we moved from an era where like, because I feel like just more and more shit gets greenlit all the time these days, or there'll be so many weird rabbit holes to go down. We've moved from this era of like the universal hero and what that means in these historic MGM big budget videos to like really going down so many rabbit holes of like pocket existences or whatever that are being shown. I think right now, why wouldn't anyone want to tell a story right now? But it just feels like there's like, A, it's all important, and B, there's like kind of crazy varied things going on. So I had nothing to add to that. I was just
I mean, there's something about trauma narratives where I'm like, I thrive in that, you know, because there's so much validation in it. But I'm also at the point where I'm like, I just want everyone to know that there's so much joy in queerness, that even though we deal with all of this trauma, we also actually are thriving in celebration. And that's why so many straight people want to come to our parties.
No, like seriously, whenever I watch What's Love Got to Do with It, sometimes I just fast forward to the part where Tina just beats Ike's ass because we've been waiting for it. It's hard, it's whatever, but like that moment, she's just like, watch it, just like you feel this cathartic relief just lifted. So
yeah. All right, so we are coming to the end of this program. Thank you so much. I just want to keep talking to all of you, but the last question is about a moment in time that's happening right now with Lil Nas X. I'm so inspired by this video and all the stories that are going around at Nike and everything. And I want to know what all of your thoughts are, because I know you probably have, a dissertation we could talk about right now.
Say it like this. I was a black satanic faggot before it was cool.
The end.
That's it. There's nothing else to say. That's it.
I mean, what else?
All right. Well, is there any questions from the audience that, let me see. I see that there's a question here about, is there any films that you all would want to remake through a queer lens? That's a good one. I like this.
Blade Runner.
Ooh. I like the idea of like sci-fi queerness,
Party.
What?
House party.
Friday.
Yeah, I love
I can't
a stoner,
top those,
I love a
can't top
stoner
those.
queer film. I definitely love a stoner queer film. Any other questions from the audience? Well, Hello McPherson asks, what artists are you all obsessed with right now? Great question.
Brontez.
Yeah, Brontez.
I thought you were calling me. I was like, what? Why me?
I really love a group out of I think they're out of Detroit. So they have a little series called Queen Chronicles, and it's all written and created by Black trans women, and it's so like, again, like bringing the humor, bringing the comedy, bringing the fashions. Like, it's so cute, it's so fun, it's so like, I mean, again, I'm just like, please, people, give them all of your money so that this can be a series that is extended. You know, it's a pretty short little web series right now. And again, that is on FemmePower Productions. It's also on OTV. Aya Simone is one of the actresses in that, and she plays the harp and is this amazing musician. And I'm a huge fan of her. So that's the narrative storytelling that I've been really loving.
I mean, Michaela Cole changed my life during the pandemic. So that, I mean, like, that is my, like, she was.
I mean, but can we also talk about chewing gum? Like, everyone wants to talk about, I mean, that's interesting too, right? In terms of like trauma narrative versus comedy, like chewing gum is one of my, I mean, I didn't even used to watch TV. I'm like, we didn't even talk about that. Now we're closing out, but I'm like, remember when we didn't used to watch TV for like over a decade? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we watch TV now on laptops. So, okay, I guess we're doing that now. But like, I mostly hate everything, but I love chewing gum. And then you couldn't even get it here for a minute, which was terrible. But I just got to watch some of it the other night, and I was, what's that?
Yeah, I don't even know where we can watch it now. Is it on Netflix still?
You got to have the hookup, you know? You got to have the hookup. So
Do you have the hookup? Because I want to
You got to have some international situation.
Michaela Cole, if you are watching this, I want to meet you, and I want to rewatch Chewing Gum.
Oh, she's incredible. I love her. I'm definitely obsessed with her for sure. Absolutely.
Do any of you have any other like queer artists that you're following right now that you want to throw out there?
I love Jeremy Harris. Like, his Broadway show is Slave Play, and I think it's still playing. He did this other one called Daddy, but he's the one that just did the Zola movie. And I think it's always fun to talk to him. I think he's like total like genius theater god who I love.
Also, like, all of these like 19 to 23-year-old kids that are doing like the most hilarious shit on TikTok. Like, there's so much incredible content and so much like reshuffling of the format that I think is just, it's amazing. And I can't even think of any off the top of my head because I follow so many of them. But I think that we really need to give some of these like these babies their props, because I would not have been able to do that at like 18, 19. It's just incredible, which ties into the whole Lil Nas thing, because I think part of the thing that makes what he was doing so successful is just like a really intimate, like primal understanding of what the medium of social media is. It's incredible.
Agree 1,000%. Love it. Love all of it. I'm just like, TikTok is, again, it's performance art. It's amazing.
Are any of you on TikTok? I know,
I'm gonna try to.
Not yet. I'm being old writing scripts, like doing 3-act structure.
I know, but I love it. I'm so excited for everything that's coming out of that. So another question that we have is, we have this attentive audience right now. If there's one thing that each of you would want them to do when the stream ends, what would it be?
Follow me on Instagram, Herrera Images.
I want you to forgive yourself.
Ooh.
I want you to find another queer, radical, underground, subcultural, weirdo filmmaker or artist to follow and like actually keep up with their work. And if you have the means to, you know, Venmo them, send them some cash, like support them in some way, or even or write them a cute note about what their work means to you.
I'm literally doing that. I write people so many notes. And I want to like, yeah, I would say the exact same thing, Heather. I want everyone in this stream right now to donate $5 to an artist that they believe in, you know, and if you have more, you know, if you can donate more, then donate more. But like, you know, I feel like there's a world in which if everyone donated $5 to their favorite artist, then we would have a better world, you know. What else? Yves Saint Croissant, my sister, just wanted us to know that we're also sexy, and this has been very enjoyable. Let's see. Ooh, my new friend David. Do you think larger institutions and streaming platforms have space for a variety of queer films and non-trauma narratives does there need to be a queer streaming platform?
I think we need a platform for
definitely.
ourselves in general. Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of what FemmePower Productions is. That's kind of what you're doing, right?
I mean, it's one thing, right? It's like, you know, when I put it in my bio or in a grant application, I'm like, I created a free streaming platform called FemmePower TV. But literally I just made I made a page on my website / the person who made my website, who is another person I'm obsessed with, Evie Snacks, follow that little cute creature on Instagram because she helps to run a festival called Hot Bits, which is a queer porn festival. So follow them if you want your explicit material that is hot as fuck and nasty and queer. So anyway, Snacks looked it up for the website. But it's like, we need multiples, we need many. So I'm like, you know, if you have hella resources and tech skills, then like make this bigger level platform, you know, otherwise, I mean, I'm just curious how we can, and I haven't even talked about this extensively with anyone, but I'm like, how can we retrain ourselves or train ourselves like we do for music and other forms to seek out this like underground work in terms of film and video? So again, it's like, I don't know if it's about like getting queer work onto like a like more indie platform that already exists, or if it's about like, you know, having some that are even more DIY or, you know, everything in between. But there's so much amazing work out there, and I want people to be able to access it, so we don't have to just like, you know, if you want to just like guilty pleasure veg out and watch, you know, whatever reality TV, like do you, but there's also so much like life affirming work out there, again, like we saw tonight, that I know that people would benefit from. So I want us to learn how to access that. So Leo, what's your site again?
I'm sorry?
What's your site again?
Oh, it's you can watch Fathers at iftheylive.org. But as you were talking, I was thinking actually about that QAnon documentary that just came out on HBO, and how these nerds and these like, you know, people create these websites and these news groups outside of the Apple, Google, Amazon stuff, and it ends up being all this horrible white supremacist fucking pedophilia goriness. What we need is something that's for us, that's queer, that could be explicit, that's outside of them. I don't know what the technicalities of that are, but I think at some point we need a group of queer superheroes that set us up something that's outside of you know, the web that we're all used to, because we're always going to be kicked off platforms. It's happened every year. We lose space in real life and on the internet. So until we figure out a way to harness, and we've always done this. I mean, we've pioneered so many technologies as queer people. We were doing social, you know, media before it was called that. You know, my first thing was Planet Out and gay.com 25 years ago. So we always do that. I think it's just someone's going to have to figure out the how to monetize that enough so that it pays for itself. But we need to have platforms that are completely outside of these corporate structures, because they don't bend toward us. They bend toward censorship at all times.
So I guess we're going to start wrapping up now, but one last question from my sister, Jenna Riot. If you could collaborate with anyone in the world, who would it be?
I went to a dinner party with Michelle Obama.
What?
What a cliche.
Not the dinner party part. Everybody else just wants to like suck the soul out of her. I'm just like, no, let's like have like dresses, cocktails, roasted beets.
Roasted beets. Oh, who would I do that was?
So mine is, I mean, Pedro Almodovar, hands down, my favorite filmmaker. I want him to come to San Francisco and to party with him, make art with him. Bart Simpson and Lil Nas X are also up there too for me.
I'm such a nerd. Like, you know, when these questions come up, I'm just like, all I can think is like, you know, I have this like, it's all of us, you know, and to be able to gather like a group of people from like multiple locations into one. And I have like, you know, I used to have this fantasy of this like dream tour that would be like, you know, like Heels on Wheels, and then like, you know, Annie Danger from Fully Functional, and Leah Lakshmi from Mangoes with Chili. And then I have this like dream writer's room in my head that I haven't even like told any of these people. That's like Celeste Chan and Curia Traber and Melissa Banales and like, you know, all of these different people. And so I'm just like, I'm so stuck on like, how can I make that fantasy a reality? I can't even like play those other games because honestly, I just want to like kick it with my queerdo friends, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's what I did with Fathers, was sort of figure all the people that I wanted to, dead and alive, that I wanted to collaborate with. And I spent 5 years doing that. So now that I'm trying to find somebody in my head that I would do that now, I'm totally stuck.
Well, thank you all for doing this. I'm just so excited for the projects that you're working on and to see what you're going to come up with next, and what I think is going to be a queer artist renaissance in the next few years. So thank you everyone for coming to the stream. Please donate to SOMArts. Thank you for supporting us already. Thank you to all of my staff that have done an incredible job putting this production together. Yes, I'm just so grateful that we have this platform right now, and stay tuned for what we're going to do next with Lush. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but we're planning to do it in June.
Thank you, Devon. Thank you, SOMArts, for having us. Thank you, Leo and Brontez. I'm just such a fan of you both. Thank you for being fabulous and making such crucial work.
Likewise.
I love y'all so much.
All right, I think that's it for us tonight. Just like want to reiterate what Devon was saying. Thank you so much to all of the filmmakers who joined us tonight, and for this amazing conversation, and for the great questions from the audience. Like Devon said, you know, you can support us over at somarts.org, but also like follow all of these artists on Instagram. You know, I put their ats in the chat, but it's at Herrera Images, at FemmePower Productions, and at Brontez Purnell on Instagram. And really that's it. And subscribe to our newsletter to hear about the next Lush, whatever it may be. Might be a dance party, who knows? We'll dare to dream. But for now, I just want to say thank you and good night, everyone.